Thank you for joining us. I'm David Wagner, President-elect, filling in for President Paul. I trust you've managed to stay warm and safe during this period of cold, icy weather. And I'm looking outside right now and I see our trees have a little coating of ice on them. I want to remind everybody on a positive note that February is Black History Month. And if you're looking for a good book to read, our own past president, Hannibal Johnson, has authored a number of books, several of which would provide an excellent read for this month, especially about the history of Black Wall Street. I also want to mention that Rotary International President-elect Shekhar Mehta announced the presidential theme for 21-22. It is to serve, to change lives, appropriate for any year, but particularly as we look to the opportunities that certainly lie ahead for all of us. It's kind of an exciting theme to think about and an exciting year and an opportunity laden year for us to look forward to as Rotarians who are here to serve. I'd like to next welcome our Rotarian of the day, Roger Ramsire, Vice President and Tulsa Market Leader for Cox Communications, immediate past chair of the Tulsa Regional Chamber, and a good friend of mine. Welcome, Roger. Please introduce our speaker for today.
Thank you, President-elect David Wagner. It is a pleasure and a great opportunity to introduce our very special speaker today. Now, a lot of us might not think often how critical the leadership of the President and Chief Operating Officer of PSO might be to each and every one of us. Reliable power is something that most of us just don't think about very much until we don't have it. And for about 6,000 of us who live in South Tulsa, ironically this morning at 6:32 a.m., about 6,000 of us did lose power, the first time for me in absolutely ages. And I thought, how ironic, today would be the day that I have the privilege to introduce Peggy Simmons. With that having been said, and only 12 minutes later, my power came back on, and I said, thank you, Lord, for Peggy Simmons and her hardworking crew. It is amazing the questions that come through our mind when we think about things like, could this be a multi-day event? And what will happen to my pipes if they freeze because the electricity isn't there to keep the heater fan going? With that, we are more appreciative than ever, and I'm also appreciative because Peggy keeps about 70,000 power poles upright that I rent from her to carry Cox fiber and internet and cable lines. So for that, I am deeply appreciative, and our speaker today has some amazing qualifications. As President and Chief Operating Officer of Public Service Company of Oklahoma, Peggy has responsibility for all aspects of electric service for PSO's more than 550,000 customers in Oklahoma. That includes distribution and operations, safety, customer service, communications, external affairs, and regulatory functions. Peggy has been with the company for more than 2 decades, starting as an energy trading scheduler in AEP's commercial operations team. Peggy has a bachelor's degree from The Ohio State University, go Buckeyes, and a master's degree in public policy administration from Central Michigan. She's a graduate of the executive program at the Darden School of Business. And as many of you know, Peggy is very active in our community. She serves currently on the boards of Tulsa United Way, the Chamber of Commerce, where I've had the privilege to get to work closely with her, the State Chamber of Oklahoma, and the Tulsa Community Foundation. We hope to save time for questions following Peggy's presentations. I've already received several from a couple of you, some interesting thoughts, and if you have more, please type them into the chat function in Zoom. But for now, allow me to extend a warm Tulsa Rotary welcome to Peggy Simmons. Peggy, take it away.
Well, Roger, as always, thank you for that enthusiastic and very warm introduction. I tell people all the time there's something very unique about Tulsa, and I am very much convinced it's the people. So I'm very thankful for the friendship that we have made since my time here, Roger. And hello to everyone else. Sorry we could not be in person, but I am thankful to be able to be here before you today and have the opportunity to speak with you. You know, I actually have a connection to the Rotary back from whenever I was in high school. The Rotary was the first scholarship I received whenever I was applying to Ohio State and had made the decision to go there. And I recall that it was one of my school teachers, her family owned a local business, and they had they were on the leadership for the Rotary, and she submitted my name. And from that point on, I was very much focused on a lot of the work that the Rotary did. But the big thing about what my teacher, Ms. Romano, did for me was that she believed in me, and really that meant a lot. So she believed in my potential, and she expressed it, and I was forever thankful for that contribution, not just for that scholarship, but for her belief and her faith as well. And I actually wrote her a handwritten thank you after my first year in college. And she has since passed, but she often kept in contact with my family and my career progression. So I do have a connection definitely with the Rotary. If we move on to the next, I'm sorry, the slides are not up here. I was told that that someone was going to have my slides up here, but I can. Okay. Thank you very much. Yeah, if we can go to the next slide. And you know, thinking about service above self, it reminds me of one of my favorite quotes, and it is related to Dr. King and life's most persistent and urgent question: what are you doing for others? And for me, doing for others doesn't always have to be financial, and sometimes it is just a kind and encouraging word. And so while, again, as I had mentioned and shared about my scholarship from the Rotary back home, again, it was really a lot about the impact from my teacher and her belief in me. And I also would like to think that 2020 put on full display for all of us the many opportunities that we have to learn from one another, to put self-interest aside and find ways to do more and do well for each other. As service is very key and important to me, and as Roger so eloquently stated, I do serve on a lot of boards. I get a lot of requests, and oftentimes I wonder, do I have the capability, the capacity to take on something else? But I do remember that I'm a strong believer that to whom much is given, much is expected. And so it keeps me going. And not just myself, but PSO has been a very, has a long commitment to service. And as we go to the next slide is where I'll start to share a little bit more about PSO. I think most are aware that PSO is a sub of AEP and has been providing reliable service throughout the state of Oklahoma for over 100 years. And being part of a large family such as AEP with operating companies in 11 states, it really provides an opportunity for sharing best practices, as well as sharing in successes as being recognized as one of the world's most admired companies. And so throughout the rest of the presentation, I am going to talk a little bit about where the industry is going, how we're creating value, and how we are engaged in our community as well. We can go on to the next slide. Thank you very much there. So we know that business retention is important. We also have an interest in economic development and attracting more businesses and jobs to our area. And so essentially, you know, more people there are, the more dollars to help us do more good in our communities. These four quadrants that I have highlighted here, they highlight some of the key tenets that I hear of really importance when attracting new businesses. I often hear, is your service reliable? my process is very energy intensive, and what are your rates like? It's a large component and expense portion of my bill. What's it look like if I have an issue or have an interruption? Who do I call? And so Oklahoma enjoys some of the lowest rates in the country with some of the best reliability. Another area that we also hear, that I hear a lot about, is related to sustainability. And so as we move to the next slide, I will talk a little bit more about some of the sustainability. As a state, we have some of the most abundant resources to keep Oklahoma as a leader in the clean energy economy. Just recently, information was presented and shared that for new wind in 2020, new wind construction in 2020, Oklahoma ranks 3rd in the nation. There's going to be more increases from a solar perspective. And a lot of this is driven by a lot more of investors. They're really focused on ESG, very focused on sustainability, where they're putting their dollars and making sure it's driving for a cleaner economy. And Oklahoma has an abundant amount of resources to support in this effort. Some of the things that we are doing, and if you can go to the next slide, just a quick highlight of some of the things that we are doing in that effort and where we're engaged on behalf of our customers, is building the grid of the future and enabling the generation shift to clean resources. We have an integrated resource plan, which I won't go through a lot of detail about, that highlights where we're going to bring on some more renewables. But it's not just renewables. It is a complement that we have a need for natural gas, and there's conversations going on around whether it's blue, green, hydrogen, and what that looks like, and where does that work into the generation fleet. There's also on a distributed level, where does solar play a role into that? Another item that is highlighted is related to electric vehicles, and there was a partnership with NCOG and FreeWire Technologies, excuse me, in which there are charging stations that have been put up at the gathering place, out at the aquarium, and out near the airport, and PSO participated in that as well. One of the larger projects one of the wind farms will be coming online here at the end of March or beginning of April, is the North Central Wind Project. And it's about a 1,400 megawatt project that the output is being shared amongst PSO and our sister operating company, SWEPCO, in Louisiana and Arkansas. And it is a $2 billion project, and with over $1 billion in savings. We are getting about 600, PSO is getting about 685 megawatts of that project to support our customers. And it's one of the few opportunities that you really can find where you can make that much investment, that much impact into the state, and it's actually going to lower customers' bills. So we're pretty excited about this one coming online. Another area is with Fort Sill. We are currently working on a project and making a filing with the commission, where it would be RICE engines, which are just kind of like the combustion engines that are in your car, that can actually fluctuate a lot quicker and respond to some of the intermittency around renewables, and combining that with some solar resources at the Army's post there to allow for more resilient, resiliency at the post. And essentially 99% more of the time, it would be serving the rest of PSO's customers. However, if there happened to be some type of a threat to the grid or anything, it would be able to island off and meet the needs that that are there at the post. And if we go on to the next slide, we always talk about, so we're focused on delivering reliable power, and our team is also engaged in the community and focused on doing our part to ensure that we have a diverse and inclusive team that actually represents the communities that we serve. We have a diversity and inclusion roadmap that is very comprehensive and strategic, and it's really designed to guide these efforts through 2025. There are 4 key areas in our D&I roadmap that we have. One of our top priority is building that diverse, high-performing workforce. We are assessing current candidates through selection processes, which will implement change to ensure measures are in place to mitigate bias in our interviewing and hiring process. We also are laser focused on creating and sustaining an inclusive work environment that empowers our employees. So we must also create an environment where we can have those difficult conversations and share our personal stories. And we have been having those, and I have been participating in those with my leadership team as well. We also have to recognize that transformation is a process and it's not an event. So we are making sure we're holding ourselves accountable and maintaining this critical progress as we go through. And finally, we will continue to foster relationships with our external partners and organizations that focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion. Our external brand, I am a firm believer, must reflect our internal focus of diversity and inclusion being a core value. And if we go on to the next slide, one thing we really focus on as well is staying curious and making sure we're asking questions. And here, a lot of this is what's driving our innovation. Some of the innovative things that we have going on is around modernizing our grid is related to the distribution automation circuit reconfiguration, DACR, that we are deploying out on our grid. And essentially what happens there is it's a self-healing type of a process. So as Roger was talking a lot about talking about the outages that we had this morning, what we're able to do is that whenever there is some type of an issue, the grid itself can automatically adjust and move over to another circuit. So we're deploying a lot more of those on our system. We already have been fully deployed with AMI technology, where we can have ongoing conversation with our circuits and understand what's going on and not necessarily have to roll a truck to or send someone out to address any concerns or needs. With these, we're also working. We had 2 interns from the University of Tulsa this summer who helped us with a lot of this technology that we were working on, and we try to do a lot more of that throughout our community. It's very important that as our industry starts to change, that we are focused on helping our tech schools and our universities understand what those changes are looking like so that they're helping us prepare the future of our workforce. On the next slide, I will give a highlight on some of the work that we have been doing around as it relates in our response to COVID. It impacted it really is impacting our current and our future activities. It has fundamentally shifted our lens of public policy on multiple levels. And we really have took a pause when it came to how we were going to best keep our employees out in the field safe. So our office employees, we have told them through at least May, they will be working remotely, but our folks that are out in the field and keeping the lights on have continued to go out into the field and do such. We've created small work groups that would allow them not to interact outside of those work groups. We clearly, as everyone else did a lot of work with getting PPE and other things out there, and our sanitizing practices, we increased those as well. But for me, I really thought it was important during this process to understand what we really learned during 2020 and with the pandemic, because it really taught us to be agile. It really helped us to figure out what the art of possible really is. If anyone was to ever ask, hey, can you just have all of your office employees go and work from home, we would have probably put together a team of 25 people. It would have took us probably 3 years, and we would have figured out all of what the issues were and how it was going to be a problem. But we were able, not just PSO, many did this at the drop of a dime. And I think it really taught us a lot about agility and really about what the art of the possible truly is. And it also, for our field employees, one of the first things whenever we started off, we were having these, we started off daily, then we went weekly conversations because things were changing so fast and folks just didn't know what to expect. So it was important to have that level of communication. One of the quotes I did share often was the Winston Churchill quote about, you know, we shall not fail or falter, and you know, we shall not weaken or tire, and really just give us the tools and we'll finish the job. And that's what we really focused on, making sure that our staff and team had the tools that they need to do the job and to be able to keep the lights on and focus on what it was that we could control. And I really think that really helped us to weather through the pandemic and get us to where we are today. And with that, I will pause. I saw some questions. My eyes kept going down to the chat box. I saw some questions popping up, and so I will pause and answer any questions that folks have. I don't know if someone's going to read them off, or do you all want me to go in there and read them?
Yeah, Peggy, I'll be glad to coordinate because I've gotten a few by text as well.
Okay.
And the first one is kind of an interesting one I hadn't thought of before. Like a lot of companies, you're owned by American Electric Power, and some of us say AEP/PSO, some say PSO. Is there ever any thought to eventually going to just a consolidated name of AEP, or is the commitment to the PSO name pretty solid?
That's an interesting question. I think we've had, I've been part of conversations on branding, on what that would look like, and if there is, if that is necessary. But as of right now, we're staying with the PSO name.
It cost a lot of money to replace that big sign on the river by downtown. This is one that you and I have talked about before because we share this challenge in that there are a lot of people in our industry who are within 3 to 5 years of retirement. Talk to us a little bit about what you're doing from a workforce development perspective and what concerns there are and how do we address that in our community?
Great question. You know, I think one thing I know that we're seeing is just trying to get from frontline employees, individuals that want to be out working with their hands. We're just having some challenges there. So a couple things that we have been doing I've been going out into middle schools and taking some of our engineers with me and just having conversations about our back office jobs as well as our frontline positions, because our frontline workers, they do make a good salary, and I don't think that people always understand that. And we talk through what is the what we look for in those individuals. We talk through what some of the tech schools that they could go to. We started working on trying to figure out some minority scholarships to help to get, definitely we want to get more women into those positions or opportunities for more women to come into those positions. So we've been working on some minority type scholarships with some of the tech schools to support that as well. I think as far as also retirement from a back office perspective, I think it's also a great opportunity from what does technology, how does technology play into things? Often we hear technology is replacing jobs. I like to say that it's augmenting the work that we do. So we are definitely looking at how we can use technology maybe that will help to make us be more efficient in certain areas. So maybe not every single one of those positions have to be refilled, but also with the existing individuals, do we have employees still focused on the right thing? A lot of things are changing in our industry. And so can we help to upskill or get our employees get certain certifications to be able to meet some of those needs as well?
Peggy, another interesting question. There's a lot of talk about electric vehicles these days. You showed some of the charging stations at the gathering place, and we're seeing more of them crop around. Wall Street Journal recently reported that if we would convert our entire vehicle fleet in the country today to electric vehicles, there wouldn't be enough electricity to supply them. Talk to us about what AEP's perspective and point of view on that is and how we will meet that need. Do we see that as an ongoing increase?
So what I would say, I've spoken on a couple of regional and national panels, and this question seems to come up quite a bit. And I mean, I think Europe has been doing some work, and they're a lot further ahead on this than the United States is. But the onset is that it's not going to all happen at once. There are a lot of things that need to take place as the adoption rate starts to occur, and the utilities are following that, and we are making the necessary adjustments to accommodate that. Yes, I would say if everything just flipped and all at once, that's what we did. There probably would be a little bit of scrambling, but as the way that the adoption rate is taking place and the way that it's working out, we will be able to meet those needs. And again, from an AEP perspective, I would say first, it's trying to figure out, is there enough capacity on circuits? So we're looking at our distribution systems and ensuring that there's enough capacity, because you don't always know exactly where folks will be charging. The belief is that most people will be charging at home or at work. So just understanding and doing some analysis from that standpoint.
Another interesting question that a lot of us may not know the answer to, and that is, where physically is the electricity for those of us in Tulsa generated? Is it predominantly the plant along the river that is such a visible icon?
Well, I love that very visible icon that's there on the river. But, there is not to go in a lot of detail, but there is the Southwest Power Pool. There is a regional entity where we have economic dispatch. So generation is bid into or put into the overall system, and then it is then dispatched from that perspective. It's a least cost dispatch model that has worked where the power does come from. So I will say in general, that's a general overview of how that power is dispatched across our system.
And Rob Berry asks another kind of a related question about approximate percentage breakdown of the various sources of that generation between natural gas and coal and wind and hydro and anything else.
So in 2026, we will be retiring our last coal plant. So PSO will have no coal in our system. We will then have natural gas and renewables. With the North Central wind facility that I mentioned earlier, it will take us to about a third of our generation mix will be from renewables. The remaining will be from natural gas. We've recently just had an RFP for some natural gas that we'll be bringing onto our system as well, starting in 2022. And that's essentially what our integrated resource plan does. It looks at what resources are out there, what are the cost-effective resources to bring onto the system, and then what is the best complement of those resources.
And to that end, it is this is a very interesting question. This person comments about getting things in the mail and seeing the promotions for encouraging energy conservation, new energy efficient appliances and insulation and other things that PSO is so good about promoting. Mm-hmm. You are among the few businesses that encourages consumers to use less of your product. Why is that?
I always say that energy efficiency is a low-hanging fruit. We always want to do what's best to meet our customers' needs, and building more, if we can meet those needs by encouraging customers to use less, and then we can say, okay, what do we now need to build to add to that to meet our customers' needs, is in the best interest of our customers. So we always support that, and we've had an energy efficiency program that we've been filing at the commission for the last, for about the last 7 or 8 years so far. So it's been a very positive, aspect. It is a part of our our integrated resource plan as well to help to say, here's how much we have that we know is coming from energy efficiency. And then on top of that, we start to layer in what our additional capacity needs may be.
Let's go to security. How vulnerable is our grid to a cyber attack? What kinds of measures does PSO undertake to ensure effective cybersecurity measures?
So that's a great question. AEP, actually, we have a whole floor of folks that focus on cybersecurity in the Columbus office in Columbus, Ohio. A lot of it I can't go into a lot of details about, but one of the key tenets of it is ensuring that we're modernizing our grid. Once a grid starts to age, we want to be able to make sure that we have the right, the first line of defense is ensuring that we have our poles and everything else are resistant to any type of weather, and that's the first thing. And then the next thing we start to do is that we have our SCADA systems and the fiber that we lay out and ensuring that it is protected. So we are engaged with the Department of Homeland Security and stay on top of running drills to ensure that if something were to happen, how we would respond and how we would react to that.
Interesting comment and a question from Allison Anthony about PSO's inclusion, diversity, and equity work is so well known and held in such high regard. What, you have a slide on this, but what would you say the top 2 or 3 things are that are really making a difference from a DE&I perspective?
I would say the top 2 to 3 things. One would be actually having the conversation. I think that there has to be an acknowledgement where people feel comfortable to share how they bring themselves to work, or how they have to show up at work, or how if an incident happened over the weekend, how it may be impacting them. I will say that, I will share that, and I've shared this with others before. I had a conversation with my leadership team whenever I was driving back home to see my family. My son and I was pretty late. I decided to drive all day, and we were pulled over at night by the police. And I have a 16-year-old son, soon to be 17, and he looked at me, and it was after George Floyd, and he said, "Mom, I'm scared." And I told him, it's okay. I said, we haven't done anything. I said, we're just going to answer questions and we're going to keep it moving, and it's going to be okay. So I would say for me, it was a very, for my son to have to ask me that, it was a very, it hurt. But I also wanted to assure him that we were going to get through that. And I share it because I shared it with my leadership team, because oftentimes I think there is a view that, oh, that happens over there, or it happens somewhere else, not with people I know. And I just think it's important for people that I have relationships to know that it can happen anywhere with anyone. So I would say one is having those conversations is definitely key.
Great points. We've got 2 kind of related questions about wind energy. Chris Benj, is good to remind us that in the past few years, there's been a lot of public pushback about large transmission lines traversing the state, and asking, are there any transmission line large projects that are being contemplated at present? And then a related question, in trying to make headway to wind, that we had to ask Texas for some support in this, and yet that obviously didn't work out. Are we looking towards some new opportunities in the future from a wind perspective? Give us some more insight in that regard.
So I would say that transmission is going to be a key to, I'm going to say this from a national standpoint. Transmission is going to be a key to getting renewables to where the high demand areas. There are certain portions of the region that have a high potential, high output for renewables. and transmission is going to be needed to get it to those other areas. It's also going to help with those markets, those regional markets, that help with the variance of cost as well. So transmission one is going to continue to be key. I don't know if I understand the question around the relationship to Texas. So if there's any more clarity around that, I'll be willing to answer it. I just don't think I had quite understood what the question was as it related to Texas. But what I will say is that, so the Southwest Power Pool, they have oversight for those transmission lines. So the transmission owners, we own them, but they have oversight for them. And so they do the planning around it on where does that next line need to be and what's the cost related to that. So there is more of an integrated and comprehensive review of those transmission investments. But if someone wants to clarify the Texas piece, I'll be willing to give my opinion.
Bree, are you on?
I am. It was a couple of years ago, and it was just a news article I read, so I would have to go look it up to look at the details for it. But thank you anyway.
Oh, okay.
Another question, and then we'll open it up one last time before we need to shut down the Q&A. Question is, and you may not be privy to be able to share this information, but with this unprecedented and unforeseen pandemic situation, may we ask what kind of changes, if any, did you see? I know from an internet perspective, we saw nothing but going straight up in terms of utilization. From a power perspective, did you see a pretty good dip in March, and what has transpired following?
Yeah, I think mostly all utilities, ourselves included, saw that the commercial and industrial load dropped off. I mean, there's stock production. I mean, we all know the drivers of what were behind that. And we saw residential load increase because everyone was then working from home. So we saw that. We saw a sharp impact starting in March of last year. Then somewhere around summer, going into late summer, residential started to subside just a tad bit. C&I started to come up just a little bit. I think part of that was due to some of the CARES funding and more of the commercial businesses and restaurants being able to open up a little bit, and some things like that, I think, had some level of impact on it. And then it kind of stayed with residential slightly elevated, C&I kind of slightly depressed as compared to previous years to that point. So,
Peggy, from a safety perspective, comment from me, I know that PSO is held in such high regard. For those of you who didn't notice on her slide, she was very good to point out with the groups of employees with no masks that the pictures were taken pre-COVID. I'm not as smart as Peggy because I published a slide of some of my team, and my safety director severely admonished me. So you were good to put that disclosure that slide was taken pre-COVID, Peggy. That is absolutely fantastic. And the last thing I would say, and I won't embarrass this person who's a neighbor, but when our power did go out this morning, this happens anytime there's a power outage, and we're blessed in Tulsa, there's not many, but when there is, I got a text from a highly regarded business leader in this community who said, hey, not knowing how long the power is going to be out, wondered if you could go ahead and have Cox reset my modem because I've got some calls coming up here, just in case the power's not on. And I had to remind him that he needs power to be able to run that modem. So with that, Peggy, we are so appreciative. We are so glad you are a Tulsan, and we are absolutely thrilled that you're part of the civic leadership and the fabric of our great community. And thank you for sharing with the members of the Rotary Club of Tulsa today. Let's give Peggy a big round of applause.
All right, thank you.
Thanks so much. And with that, President-elect Wagner, I turn it back to you. Bye-bye.
Peggy, I feel like this has been really a fortuitous day for all of us. I mean, this is like having one of the coaches from a Super Bowl team on the day of the Super Bowl. So, and I mean that out of a sincere appreciation. Roger's comments before, how he had that personal experience, we could attest to the value of PSO, seeing your folks up on those poles in the worst kind of weather. Wow, and your leadership. So on behalf of everyone here, thank you for taking your time today to speak to us. Your steady leadership, not only at AEP, PSO, but also in our community, has made a huge impact on so many, from your employees to those who serve, Roger, all of us throughout PSO, to the businesses, boards, and nonprofits you touch. Thank you so very, very much, Peggy. We appreciate your leadership, the impression, the percentage of engagement that you have in our community is incredible. So thank you, Peggy. Now, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Norm Simon for a special announcement for us. Dr. Simon.
Thank you, President-elect David. I was asked to speak for a few minutes regarding where we stand with the COVID and particularly the vaccine. Apologies to my good friends, Dr. Joe Moore and Dr. Vonnie Graham, who are in the meeting. Hopefully I won't say anything incorrect. I would tell you as an example, just a short, about a week ago, one of our fellow Rotarians was at his doctor's office and asked if he'd be able to get his vaccination through his doctor's office. His doctor proceeded to tell him, well, he's concerned it may be a conspiracy and it could damage his DNA and his reproductive organs. This is a senior member who was hardly worried about his reproductive organs. This skepticism, though, is a real problem. The good news in Oklahoma now, almost 45% of seniors have been vaccinated. The bad news is 55% haven't. Some of the myths that are going around on social media, et cetera, that the vaccine can damage your DNA. This is an mRNA vaccine that has no capability of entering into the nucleus where the DNA is to affect it. There's no evidence whatsoever it can damage your reproductive organs for a male or female. And of course, that ridiculous one about Bill Gates planting a chip in the vaccine so you can be controlled and followed. We don't need to talk too much about that. There has been a lot of concern by people, was the vaccine developed too quickly? I will tell you that no steps were skipped in the development of this. What they did was, because there were so many people anxious to get the vaccine, they were able to get over 70,000 people to participate in the Moderna and Pfizer trials, larger than most previous vaccine studies. The vast majority of safety issues with new drugs arise within 2 months, and we now have over 40 million doses of these two medicines administered in the US alone, and we've not been seeing any serious long-term problems. Our mRNA vaccine something new? The answer is not really. They've been working on them since 2011. The incidence of serious side effects, about 50% of us that get our second vaccine will have some symptoms. Those are actually not undesirable. The aching or arthritic symptoms or low-grade fever actually indicate a good immune response, but it's not necessarily bad if you don't have them. One thing I would caution you, though, there is a little concern whether pre-medicating with Tylenol, acetaminophen, or ibuprofen or naproxen is a good idea. There is some theoretical concern it may have a negative effect. So I would definitely not take those things in advance of the vaccination. And if you do have the symptoms afterwards, probably Tylenol would be a better choice. Best would be nothing, but you have to judge it by the severity of the symptoms. I assume you all are aware of the Oklahoma State portal at vaccinate.oklahoma.gov. You need to sign up on there, and then they send you an email when your group is eligible to book an appointment. I will tell you that the key days are Wednesday evenings if you want to get a vaccination at the Tulsa Expo Square. That's when they post them, Wednesday evenings. In all the surrounding communities, which are mostly using Moderna because of the refrigeration issues, they're posting them their openings on Thursday mornings, typically between about 8:30 or 9 o'clock to about 11 in the morning. You need to grab them quickly. So you need to be at your computer and repeatedly checking for openings. A new exciting thing that happened, the son of a friend of mine has developed a text messaging program which all of you can sign up for. You go on the internet to vaccine-alerts-com. .com, vaccine-alerts.com. You can get email or text message alerts every time an appointment opens up anywhere in Oklahoma. Now, obviously, if you don't know the name of the county, it's probably nowhere near us, and you might not want to sign up for it. You all know that the second shot, you need to try and get the same product as the first one. There is testing going on right now to find out if that really needs to be something we continue. But for now, if you get Moderna, you want to get Moderna for the second one. Other options to get the shots very quickly, you want to check with your personal physician. A lot of the hospital, well, in particular, St. John's and Hillcrest, are offering shots to some of the patients of their affiliated doctors. St. Francis has not, I believe, started that yet, but you should definitely call your doctor's office. The Asbury United Methodist Church is now giving vaccinations. Their schedule opens on Monday, and you go to their website and you can sign up. And they are giving the shots on Fridays and Saturdays. And so that's an option to consider. If you are, and particularly if you have a senior friend that is not very facile using the computer and email, etc., refer them to Life Senior Services. And they will do the scheduling, help the person get the scheduling done. There are a couple of other quick options. Walmart and Sam's are going to be opening up vaccination appointment schedules. They're getting their vaccine this week, I believe. You have to go to the walmart.com/COVID vaccine or Sam's Club//COVID. And you can try to schedule on there the vaccinations. There'll be, I think, 4 places in Tulsa giving them. Walgreens and CVS are going to be doing it, but you can go to their site, but I don't believe they're giving them as yet. And then there's one last place I should quickly mention. If you go to a website, https://portal.com.immylabs, the letters immylabs.com/vaccine. They are giving the vaccinations at the Rose Bowl here in Tulsa. It's this lab, iMyLabs, and One Hope Tulsa are together doing that. Maybe what I'll do is to write all this out and maybe send it to Tina. And Tina, maybe you might be able to distribute this information to our members, since I had to kind of go through this quickly. But there are lots of ways now to try and get the shots. So I would urge you to do so. Thank you, President-elect David.
Dr. Simon, thank you so much. We certainly appreciate the expertise and assistance you offer in this important area. All we needed to do is just listen to your conversation, your not only expert advice, but your dissuaded a lot of the naysayers out there, as one of the members here just wrote on the chat. We so appreciate that. We so respect you for your wisdom and knowledge. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, it's Sarge time. Sarge, are you ready for us today?
Oh, President-elect David, holy cow. Have you been outside? Did you see Don Croissant was on this call, President David? John Croissant is wearing his toboggan cap. He's wearing his ski jacket. It looks like he just skied in off the slopes of South Tulsa.
I know. What's going on?
Yeah, boy. Well, Sarge is with us today. President-elect David, you're going to have a chance to play that game that President Paul did pretty good at. Who wants to be a Rotarian heir?
Well, let's do it.
Yeah, man. Well, let's get started with this one. Our first question. I'm hoping you can do a little better than President Paul did, really, David. I don't know. Our first question for you, Del Dreyer has had perfect attendance since A, 1908, B, 1928,
Ooh.
C, 1988, or D, 1998?
Wow, Sarge, that's a tough one on some parts, but well, Dell's been an important part of Rotary for a long time. But 1908, come on, I'm not going to fall for that one, Sarge. That's 112 years ago. My goodness. Even B, 1928 seems like a pretty long time ago. 98 years. My math is that good. It's working today, even on a colder day. I know Dell is pretty mature, but come on, we're going to give him a little bit. That's probably not a good answer. You know what? I think I'm going to settle with D, 1998. Sarge, that's my final answer.
Wow, David, the way you cycled the logic through that and analyzed the options. I mean, a lot of people would have guessed 1908, but Del Dreyer made a contribution. It's his 39th Rotary anniversary. It's also his birthday. And you can see there, we've got that when it's Del's birthday, everything else is irrelevant. So Del, thank you so much for your contribution today. Happy birthday and happy anniversary. We appreciate all that you've done for us as a past president. So let's go see what else you can win here, President-elect David. Let's see, here we go. It's, oh, here, this is a good one. I saw Tom Wolf was on the call. It's Tom Wolf's Rotary anniversary. What's his wife's name? A, Kimberly, B, Shannon, C, Svetlana, or D, Ruth?
Well, Sarge, actually, this is going to be an easy one for me. I've had the privilege of meeting Tom's lovely wife a few times, and her name is A, Kimberly. That's my final answer. I'm going to stick with that.
Well, once again, President-elect Dave, you did a great job. You nailed that one. It is Kimberly. Tom Wolf sent us a $200 fine because it's his anniversary. And you know what I noticed about this picture, President-elect David, is that she appears happy to be married to Tom, and that's quite a compliment to have been together for that long, and she's still happy. Tom, you must be a great husband as well as a great Rotarian. We're happy to have you. So when we recap that, we had a couple of questions on who wants to be a Rotarian here today, and it looks like when the next slide comes up, you won, President-elect David, you won. And then we have one more slide. We have a mystery Rotarian who made a $100 contribution to match a couple of those fines today. So as we prepare for the next Rotary meeting, for those of you that are on the call still, please consider making a contribution to the Rotary Club of Tulsa Foundation, and we'll include you in the next round of who wants to be a Rotarian heir. Back to you, President-elect David.
Well, thank you, Sarge. I appreciate it. And thank you to that mystery Rotary individual. We really appreciate that support. And I know Sarge does that. And on behalf of the entire club, our foundation, we appreciate that support. Well, special thanks to this week's sponsor, We Beat Trees, Tim Nall. I don't know if I saw Tim's name on the call, but I'm sure that he probably, with this type of weather, he and his team are probably out taking care of some challenges today. So special thanks to We Beat Trees and Tim Nall. Second thing, I want you to put a notation on your calendar, Thursday, February 25th from 6:30 to 7:30. Rotarians, there's going to be a fun-filled virtual Zoom happy hour called Cocktails and Conversations. A Zoom link will be posted in the Monday message, so be looking for that Zoom link. I hope to see you there. That's a great time for just the Rotarians from our club to get together, to just have a good time together, to chat and whatever. The third thing that I want to just talk a little bit about are the announcements for next week. Next week, February 17th. Julie and Sherwood Taylor will be our speakers. Sherwood was Sooner defensive back in the 1970s. They're going to share family stories and how the early years of teamwork, practice, and goal setting led to their now famous sons into such successful careers. Be sure to invite a guest for that time. That's going to be it's an interesting one. Today's, for example, with Peggy speaking today and Roger leading all those questions in, you can see how the interest is by the number of questions that came up today for Peggy, which she so eloquently answered, and I know next week will be the same. So after I adjourn our meeting today, we're going to offer breakout rooms for 10 minutes for those who would like to stay and visit with fellow Rotarians. I did last week, and I encourage you to take advantage of this opportunity to visit with members of our club. Some you may already know when you get into that breakout room, as well as some you've never met. And it's not too scary because we're not anywhere close to each other. We're practicing that social distancing. I know busy schedules keep us moving and probably want to get us on to the next event, but this is a great time to develop those friendships. So we've got a few minutes yet, and we'll take right up to 1 o'clock or whatever for that. So with that, our meeting today is adjourned, and please stick around for the breakout rooms.